Obviously, you guys, don't have a head coach. What are like if you could, build your head coach, like
Yeah.
what are some qualities that you'd want in your next head coach?
Strong-minded, um, a leader of men. I think that's a cool thing about what y'all got over there in Detroit. Like I
So
think
do you feel like, sorry about that, do you feel like you want your coach to be like offensive minded, or you want a big picture
I want them.
and then have the coordinators?
Like selfishly, I want an offensive minded guy so I can build with him and be with that coach for the next
Yeah.
19,
Hmm.
17,
Hmm.
15 years. And so I can also learn and grow and things like that from him and what he's seen and what he's gone through with maybe other QBs or been around. So that's selfishly. But if we get a overall like grand scheme coach and is good with time management, good with the clock, good with helping control the game. Just because what I mean, it's a big factor, obviously, and in our game when we played our first time at y'all's place, big factor. Is being able to help control the clock, um, and then you know helping find the right guys to
Right.
win championships. That's the only goal that I have for my NFL career is to go win a championship and championships. Start with one.
As I watch the playoffs and watch these successful teams going toe to toe, there are so many things that stick out. Teams going for it on fourth down consistently, taking risks, downfield accuracy, not playing scared, real accountability, and especially having accountability in the losses, VR training, and the piece de resistance, screen plays working. All a part of the recipe for success. These are some of the exact things we did not see, or at least not see enough of, with our boys this past season. Now, I wrote that part this morning, and then the breaking news happened. With the search for the Bears' leader of men and new head chef coming to a close with the hiring of Ben Johnson Monday afternoon, what did we learn about the Bears this week and really like a few hours ago?
Yeah, it was wild. When we were planning this podcast earlier, it was like, all right, let's take a look at some of the different options, pros and cons, how we got here, why they're talking to certain people, and like all that stuff. This kind of feels like our podcast post Foos firing, right? Where we're going to talk about all the reasons why he should be fired, and then he got fired. So, I think obviously Poles is listening to this podcast because he keeps making these moves right before we're going to record. So thank you, Mr. Poles.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Mr.
that.
Pauls.
Keep doing that. But no, in all seriousness, what do we learn? Man, they identified their guy and they just like were not fucking around, you know?
Yeah.
They finally did like the grown-up thing. They could have been cheap, right? They could have gotten Mike McCarthy, who probably would have been a little bit less, but still pricey. But man, he would have been good enough for the team to win like 10, 11, 12 games maybe a year. Keep the fan base excited, maybe get to a conference championship, maybe even get to a Super Bowl, but like there was like kind of a ceiling on him, just like there was with Tomlin, right? They tried to trade for Tomlin, but man, they swung for the fences and they got it. And you could tell like they actually did their interview process pretty well. I know that they got a lot of flack for like interviewing everybody and their mom, right? Once. But the fact that they didn't interview anyone twice, even Ben Johnson, they didn't interview anybody twice. And they handed somebody a head coaching job. After interviewing 25 people one time, nobody got a second interview and they gave somebody a job. Like, think about that. They like knew who they wanted. And as soon as the Lions were eliminated, they called Eddie George in for an interview because like we got to get one more black dude in here to satisfy the Rooney Rule. So he interviewed the following morning, Sunday morning, and so they checked that off, and then they were free to hire whoever they wanted to, and then they hired him on Monday. So it was wild. Like they This couldn't have been cheap, right? McCaskey is generally, we've talked about it a lot, one of the more cash poor owners in the league. And so he didn't think twice about paying a coach with no previous head coaching experience, like top dollar. He just went for it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, they're, I don't know. It's kind of impressive. At the same time, I don't want to get too excited because this team is just like, they just destroyed my will most of the season. And then of course, they finished with a win against the Packers and then hiring the best coaching candidate out there. So you're just like, man, all right, here we go. It's going to be another fun off season where everybody's talking themselves into like playoffs and all that stuff. And I don't know, still pump the brakes, but this was a good day. This was a good day for Bears fans.
Yeah. That's what
You
Artie
know,
said. Artie said at the end of the last episode, they keep drawing you in. Yeah, like you said, it was the Packers win, and now it's this, and it's like the, I was telling you before we recorded, Ben Johnson is kind of this podcast has been my experience to understand offensive linemen and everyone's names and who's the offensive coach on these random ass teams. So Ben
mm-hmm.
Johnson for me did not exist before this season, and honestly, even at the beginning of the season, I didn't know who he was. But it's like he's the dude that's been touted and wanted for like years, for seasons. It's going beyond like just this season. Last season, people wanted him. He's kind of been out there. He's the dude that, yeah, he's a splashy pick, and like seems like we kind of with Caleb, it was like the potential is endless and the audacity of hope is endless, and now we got a dude who can, I mean, he's Caleb Williams talking about 19 years, like that's, you know,
It's
whatever,
crazy.
however long he thinks, but it's like, yeah, there's it seems good. It seems exciting. We seems like you should be excited about this. Like I was thinking, because I think like as we've been asking all of our friends who they think the head coach should be, and like everyone has their different opinions on perspectives and all of that, and like so yeah, you can have. This seems like the right pick. There maybe were other reasons for other people as well, but it seems like the right choice. And a question I texted you during the week that someone had brought up in our group chat was like, why would anyone want to come here? And it's interesting, like because there is the every coach is clear of the chaos and all the shit and the reports of the coach agent hiring everyone on the staff. And
Wild.
yeah. And so you got Ben Johnson who actually got to watch Caleb multiple times and do the things that he did and make the choice. And
Here's
yeah,
the thing. A lot of these jobs that come up every year, right? There's dysfunction there, right? Otherwise, there wouldn't necessarily be a head coach opening. So there's dysfunction to some level, right? The
yeah,
Jets, the Saints, the Raiders, the Bears, dysfunctional franchises, right? The thing that separated the Bears was they have a quarterback. The Saints don't really have one. Carr is expensive and brittle. The Raiders don't have one, and they have the 6th pick in the draft, so they're not really going to get one. They get maybe the 3rd best choice in a very weak QB draft. The Jets have Aaron Rodgers, so I mean, if you feel really strongly about that, but you don't know what's going to happen with him. So, and I mean, there's the Jaguars too, yeah, and they have Trevor Lawrence, which is fine, but they paid Trevor Lawrence already, and Trent Baalke is kind of he's the general manager for the Jaguars, and he's got a strong personality. He's the one that got Harbaugh fired, right? He's been through a lot of different coaches there, so he's like kind of tough to work for. So it really, I don't know. For me, it was always the best job out there. There's also Dallas now that they let McCarthy go, but Jerry Jones again, right? Kind of a big personality. Also, Dak just got paid, CD got paid, and they're gonna pay Micah Parsons. So they're gonna be very top heavy. So, yeah, it was good. And so I think it's a good day for Bears fans, like I said. And Ben Johnson, one of the big things about getting him is it also weakens your division rival at the same time. You know what I mean? It's like it's addition by subtraction and addition by addition. So that helps. Ben knows the division. I think I've read something. He's like 15-3, his record against the NFC North. Obviously, there's a lot of other factors at play.
sure.
Dan Campbell probably owns, he owns that record just as much as
But
Ben
you're part of
Johnson.
the
But
success.
you
I
are,
mean, to be a part of, witness, and it does sound like he like really sort of designed, drew up,
yeah.
masterminded the offense. So that's like an integral part of that.
And he's familiar with the Bears, right? He plays the Bears twice a year. He's familiar with the defensive personnel. He probably has analyzed their strengths and weaknesses. So, he can kind of come in and be like, this is where you guys struggle. Or not you guys, this is where we struggle, right? Now he's part of the team, so he can help identify some of that. So I think it's great. We'll see what kind of staff he puts together.
Yeah.
There's rumors that Dennis Allen, a former head coach of the Saints, is rumored to be linked to the defensive coordinator position. He was a former DC for Oakland. He was a former DC for the Saints. He's okay. He's not like fantastic. He's probably a little bit better than average, but he was a previous head coach before. So I think that's kind of important because Ben Johnson's never been a head coach before. So there's probably like, some head coachy things that they can help each other, or he can help Ben with.
You're talking about Ben Johnson having played against us and knowing our weaknesses. It's like, I think like governments and or maybe this is just a TV shows, but they like hire the hacker that hacked into their system to help them understand their vulnerabilities. It is an interesting perspective. He got to see the vulnerabilities. He exposed them like trick plays and all that shit. And now we have him on our
Catch me if
side.
you can.
Yeah. And so yeah, that's a cool perspective. Now maybe he's a spy for Detroit to weaken us, that's always, I guess.
Oh my God, the long play.
The super long play, man. Do you have sort of because I guess, offensive coordinator maybe doesn't really matter as much from a head coach who's going to be calling our offensive plays, I would guess, in the same way that's depending on the coach that you got, right?
Yeah, no, that's a good observation. So when they got their last offensive guy, Nagy, and I think you mentioned this earlier, is like, can Nagy call plays? Because he was with Andy Reid. Andy Reid is running the offensive show there, right? So it's like, okay, Nagy was under a great offensive mind. Can he apply that on his own? It's different with Ben because he is calling the offensive plays in Detroit and he's owning that part of the show. So you feel like, okay, he can just bring that knowledge base here. The question with him is can he, implement that leader of men, that locker room culture, that sort of thing. That's kind of what you're relying on a little bit. But yeah, it is different, having an offensive guy that's already kind of done that side of the ball pretty well.
Do you have a defensive guy in mind then that you think that you
an offensive coordinator. Yeah, sorry.
Or defense. I guess offensive coordinator doesn't seem maybe the most relevant given that this guy's going to be, but like from maybe defensive.
Yeah. So like defensive coordinator, I mentioned Dennis Allen, right, from the Saints. Offensive coordinator, people are talking about Hank Fraley, who's the offensive line coach in Detroit. He would get a little bit of a promotion, a bump, moving to offensive coordinator. And everybody talks about how great Detroit's offensive line is, right? That would be a home run, I think, for the Bears because they need a lot of help fixing their offensive line. And so if this guy can identify talent, if he can coach them up, whatever the case is, man, that would be great. That would be great for the Bears if they can, wrestle him away also. So, but yeah, I think that's probably one of the strong considerations. There's a couple other offensive coordinator people that have ties to Ben Johnson. Brian Hartline, he's at Ohio State. Mark Brunell is the Detroit quarterback coach. He's a former player, so he's got some ties. So I think it was rumored that Ben's going to try to bring some Detroit people with him. So, be on the lookout for that. Maybe he'll bring Kevin Zeitler, who is a free agent, and along the interior of Detroit's offensive line. That would be great, because I don't think Tevin's coming back. They cut Nate Davis. They need guard help badly. And if you can bring in somebody from Detroit that already knows how Ben's system works, especially if they bring in Fraley, I think it's like awesome. That would be awesome. So
it has really been watching the playoffs, and it's kind of what led to the sort of reason the monologue is like at the beginning of this episode. It's just so, I guess, jarring to watch what teams do well, and then to like having spent this year like literally fucking watching the Bears so closely, closer than I've ever watched them, to just see like how teams' offensive lines work, how teams like call plays, how like literally like when we had nothing to go in the season and we were still punting on fourth down. It was so stupid, and these teams are like constantly going on fourth. It was ridiculous.
We were texting each other during the Commanders-Lions game, like, this is entertaining as hell. And then we're like, oh, remember that 6-3 game? Seattle against Chicago? We're like, oh my God. I hope we don't have to ever watch another one of those again.
It's just like we're in a different league. Like you have this, it just, it just becomes even so stark just how different the successful teams are from the way that we were playing. And it's almost like, damn, man, we like, you go in, you're hyped, and you're like, man, maybe these players aren't as good as or they just didn't live up to what we hoped for. Like, so many non-Cole commit, non-existing games. Is it him? Is it the play
Yeah,
calling? Whatever. Like, and I'm just watching like Mark Andrews. I know he dropped the 2-point conversion, but he and fumbled, but he had some like he was blocking the shit out of people, like making big catches. It's like,
yeah.
and so there's
Tight end's
just
a big part of the game now, and we just seem to have like not, utilize that for whatever reason. So yeah, and I'm excited about seeing if he can really untap Caleb's potential. Because Chicago's got some weapons, right, on the outside, and with DJ and Rome and Swift, and they'll probably add more. I don't think Keenan Allen's going to be back, but they'll probably add some more, right? And they got some dudes, and depending on how the defense goes, right, they got dudes on that side too. So I mean, it's a very tough division. I'm still not going to talk myself into this team being very good because I can't handle it. So it's a good day, but I'll probably I want to see it. I want to see it on the field first with Ben.
it's definitely. I mean, yeah, that audacious hope keeps rising, and it is interesting. Like we played that clip in the beginning. This was, that was recorded. Like, I did think maybe Amon-Ra shouldn't have been spending so much time podcasting and maybe just focused on the game a little bit. And I also watching the game. It's like, damn, I wonder if Ben Johnson was kind of thinking about being hired
Yeah.
by another team. 'Cause it's like they, because I thought about that during the Ravens game. It's like that's crazy. They have these big ass games to play, and they're hiring for like their future. Who knows how that played a role? Um, yeah, it's
Do you know
just
he's like a certified genius,
our
Ben
boy.
Johnson? Yeah.
By
He
whom?
was
Who's the one certifying people?
no he got his bachelor's degree in math and computer science, and he holds it's a rare achievement of a perfect score on a Mathematical Association of America test. He got a perfect score. I guess there's not that many people that get perfect scores. So Ivy Leagues actually wanted him to come to their school, but he's like, nah, I'm just gonna like play football at University of North Carolina. So then he was the backup quarterback at UNC. Um, and like after UNC, he like got a job offer doing like software development stuff, and he's like, nope, I just want to do football stuff. So like he like is like a genius. But he like he applies it to like football. It's kind of wild. So we'll see.
Yay for us, I guess. That's cool, dude.
Yeah.
I'll um, so as we kind of close this episode, I mean, now that we got our head coach, I mean, there's all these other things that have to happen, right? He has to fill his
Yeah.
staff. I mean, what
Yeah.
are kind of the things like what do they don't even really start practicing for, months and months down the line, but like over the next, weeks, months, what are you kind of hoping to see from the Bears, from the
Yeah.
head coach, maybe even from the players? Because the players at all, like, Caleb, Jaquan Brisker calling for like
Yeah. Even
offensive
Kwani.
coach. Yeah. So yeah, what are you sort of hoping to sort of look out for? And, things for like the listener and for us to kind of keep tabs on, like, are they achieving these things? What are we looking for, I guess, in short?
Yeah. I would, the introductory press conference is going to be huge. We won't really know a lot about his vision and plan until we hear that. Just be like, okay, this guy's got some people he's targeting. Who's he going to bring over? What's his draft philosophy with Ryan Poles, right? I think that press conference will be huge. Obviously, the coordinator hires will be huge. Defense. I really wanted the guy from Cincinnati. I thought he was, a pretty good candidate, but he signed with the Colts, so it's looking like Dennis Allen. Robert Saleh would be awesome, but I think he's going to go back to San Fran. So let's look out for the DC. It's probably going to be somebody they keep in a 4-3 base defense because that's the personnel that they have. Now, it's not impossible if they won't, but it makes sense to do that. So Ron Rivera is a possibility too. I know he interviewed for the head coaching job, and he's former Bear, right? A lot of Bear ties there. So could be somebody that they bring back. Offensive coordinator, like I said, see who they poach from Detroit or where that comes from. Yeah, and then let's like take a look at the free agency. I think hopefully Poles will start building through the trenches and like addressing that because that's an area that we need. Ben Johnson likes to do a lot of pre-snap motion. So he wants to add speed. So look for them to add either like a speed wide receiver via the draft or free agency or a trade or something. Because I don't think Keenan's going to come back because of that reason. And then let's see what else. Oh, he also he lets Jared Goff do a lot of stuff at the line of scrimmage, a lot of adjustment, audibling. That's something Thomas Brown did not let Caleb do. So it'd be interesting to see how much reins he gives to a second year quarterback, first year in his system kind
Yeah.
of thing. So Yeah, no, lots to learn. That's the the beauty of a new staff is like, oh, you get to learn like what they're about and what they prioritize, and it's fun to like kind of understand who they are.
They keep drawing us in, huh?
I know, man. Like I was like gonna be grumpy all off season. I was like waiting for Mike McCarthy and be like, all right, well, at least he's a quarterback guy, we'll figure it out. But like Ben Johnson, I'm like, all right, cool. I have no idea what's gonna happen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Artie. He's been drawn in for yet another season.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, she was. I listened to her podcast. I mean, while the things she was saying weren't incorrect, I feel like there was some dramatization for television, if you know what I mean.
Maybe there'll be another episode. You can make your own sort of biased corrections to all of her assertions about the way that you watch football.
I will not be doing that.
Any final thoughts before we jump off?
No, no, I think it's exciting. I'm excited for his press conference, and I think that's probably what we can dive into. Maybe next episode is like, what did we learn from it? What is he going to try to do? Who is this guy?
Yeah.
Besides a math genius.
For Samir Patel, I'm Chirag Rathod. We are the Bears in the neighborhood, and we will catch y'all next week.
Bye bye.